welcome to the podcast Innovations in Health. My name is Kristīne Ozolniece and I am your host today. And we are diving into one of the most critical issues in the development of healthcare systems. It's data governance. And today we are really honored to have with us the head of the European Data Protection Supervisor, Mr. Wojciech Wiewiórowski. Hello.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here and talk with you.
Hello. So we will be discussing how data is being processed right now in the level of European Union, so the current trends, also the biggest issues and problems and setbacks that maybe we are having, the future perspectives, and I would also like to compare Europe with other parts of the world in this field. So let's start with our first question about the current trends. What are the current trends in data processing? Are there any specific methodologies or technologies that are currently most in demand for data processing in healthcare?
Well, I would say that if we try to choose the three words which explain the best the trends that we have right now in the data processing, especially in the health sector, that would be interoperability as the first one, reuse of the data, and individualization or personalization of the information. So when I say interoperability, I mean the fact that both on the intersectoral level and international level and inter-device level, we have more and more resources which are combined one with another and which allows us to formulate different kind of questions, prompts, instructions to many databases at the same time. So these databases are not only interconnected, but they also operate together. And that is very well visible, both when you think about the cooperation between the states, because still the health data is differently stored and differently managed from one jurisdiction to the other, but also when we think about the different sectors of the market, so the sectors which are directly connected with the health, and those that are theoretically not even created for health, like for example the industry dealing with the wearable devices, different kind of patches, different kind of leisure applications that we use, and which actually are also collecting the personal data. When I say about inter-device communication, that means that we have more and more interoperability between the specialized devices in the hospital on one hand and the very basic ones that are used by us privately. We don't see this cooperation, this interconnection on everyday basis, but it exists. It actually, the data is at the same time taken from all these sides. When I think about the reuse, I mean that that information about our health condition, is theoretically collected for the very specialized use, and at the same time given access to the resources which are reused for completely different purpose. So the information which is collected by one doctor for his specialization, for his kind of work with us as a patient, is combined with the information from the other and reused for the purposes which were not the first ones that were in the heads of those who prepare the systems. When I say about personalization of the information, that means that each and every user, no matter if we talk about the medical entity or the doctor, or we are talking about the commercial entity, they want to know as much as possible about us, and they want to combine this information and use it in the interoperable way. So we start to have the profiles at each of this institution and each of this entity, and these profiles are also reused for the other purposes.
Okay. What are the main challenges facing data management in the healthcare sector today?
I think this fragmentation is the biggest problem. The fact that despite everybody wants to have the full information about the patient, in fact none of them has it. So the entities that are dealing with our data have either take as granted that the information is not complete, or to supplement this information with something which they have around, like for example statistically probable data, or the data which comes from the other sources. So fragmentation of the environment, but also fragmentation of the law. And here we come to the part which is important for me as for advisor to the EU institutions in all the legislative processes. We have to remember that the decisions on governance of data are taken on the national level. And in some countries, the federal countries like Germany, that's not even on the federal level, but on the land level where the decisions are taken. So it's extremely difficult to find the common denominator for all European systems, which will not be the lowest common denominator, which of course for the Data Protection Authority is the main problem. We see that all interoperability solutions, though they have very good purposes and they are done in the goodwill, usually they go to the lowest possible denominator, which is common for all the systems.
Is there any way how to find a solution for this? Let's say someone is traveling around Europe and it's a citizen of European Union, like me. I'm going from Latvia, I don't know, maybe to Spain. Something happens, and of course I have my data collected here in Latvia in our local system. Can I be sure that the healthcare professionals in other country will take the best possible care of me and have all the data they need if I cannot tell them what happened?
Well, you can be sure that they will try.
Yeah.
But what they will achieve, that's another story. Well, I can train it on my own example. I'm Polish by origin, and of course I took a lot of services, medical services in my country of origin, but I live already for 10 years in Belgium, which is also the country which is not a big one, so I'm traveling to the other jurisdictions as well. And to use the medical data in all these jurisdictions is extremely difficult, because this is not only technical interoperability that we are talking about, so not only the fact that the systems are connected to one with the other, but also the kind of semantic interoperability, so that the systems do understand what is written down in the other resources. This is not only the problem of language, this is also the problem of formats which are used in this electronic systems. Then we have the legal interoperability. So are we sure that the nurse or the doctor of medicine in Latvia has the same rights to get the access to the information as it is in Slovenia or as it is in Portugal? And are we sure that the decisions that have been taken on the national level on, for example, the specializations of the doctors who have the access to the information are the same all over the world, and at least all over the European Union? Are we sure that the data which which the doctor from abroad can process is the one that it's really necessary for him? Is it large enough, and is at the same time has the limits as it was planned in the country of origin?
So is there a solution for all this big problem?
There is nothing like a one silver bullet solution that will work for everybody. Definitely the legal ground is something which is extremely important, and that's something which we can work on the European level. But we have to remember that it has to be somehow implemented on the national level anyway. So the cooperation does not finish when we have one legal ground. It just starts at this point. At this point, we start to create the electronic systems, in IT systems, which shall be interoperable. And that's obvious that the decisions are taken on the very engineer level. So the privacy by design solutions, the solutions which are in the same way or the compatible way introduced in all countries of Europe is the most important part of the story. So it requires the permanent cooperation between the legislators, but also, or maybe first of all, by engineers and by those who are the specialists in different kind of different kind of medical or health sectors.
So you already moved to my second question. What should be taken into account for countries wishing to introduce good data governance policies in the field of healthcare? Or maybe if these countries want to change something?
I think the most important thing is to know what you really try to achieve. So to know what is your goal. And this is not an easy solution. Let's try to think about the goals which are the most important for the patient on one side, for the doctor as the practitioner, but also for the scientists that will use this data for the scientific researchers, and finally for the administration. And while we can easily expect that the patient will be first of all interested that the practitioner that he will have the contact with will get precise and accurate information about his health, and that will enable him to continue the services. We can also expect the doctors to be interested in getting the precise and accurate information about the patient, and maybe even more true than the one that the patient would want to pass himself or herself. But it's interesting to look from the perspective of the administration and the governance institutions, because we should not be afraid to admit that one of the reasons to create the systems like that and to get the information like that is also to achieve some budgetary results, some financial results, so to have the reasonable way of spending the public money. This is also one of the goals to be achieved. And even if for patient and for the doctor, that's, let's say, the secondary importance, for the administration of the country, that's an extremely important thing, because that allows to decide what kind of budgetary sources can be used. So that is something to be taken into consideration. The second thing is what kind of data we want to store in the system, and do we want to store only this data which is produced in the public sphere, in the public institutions and the public medical care services, or also the private one? Well, I guess the patient does not care if the data has been passed by the privately paid doctor or by the publicly paid doctor. But from the point of view of the administration, the difference is quite big. So let's say we should first of all know what we want to achieve, and we should know what data we are dealing with. Because if we want to achieve the things which are not achievable with the data that we are collecting, we are going to the bigger house than we have at the moment.
What common mistakes are often made when implementing data governance policies in a healthcare system?
Let me stay only in the part which is important for the Data Protection Authority, because I can imagine that engineers may say about different kind of mistakes, and those who are dealing with the management of the public administration will show the other ones. For us, for the Data Protection Authorities, the most important mistake that is done is when we forget about the purposes for which the system has been created. And we are also forgetting about the fact that the mere existence of the data does not mean that there is a problem at the place where which we are touching. So, for example, the person who is very carefully dealing with data, with collecting the information from the mammographic tests, is not necessarily the person who has the cancer problems. That is the person who is simply taking care of that, while at the same time might be much less careful and less cautious in the other fields. Well, giving my own example, I have a long history of the problems with kidney, because I have the kidney stones. But it doesn't mean that I have less possibilities to get the problems with the liver, which I do not have too much information about. That only means that these problems were monitored for a longer time. So, coming back to the beginning of this answer, I would say that we have to know what kind of data we created and we possess, and be aware of all the situations where we use them not necessarily for this purpose they were collected originally.
What are the risks to a disorderly data policy? What could be the consequences for patients and also for healthcare professionals and providers if data policy is not clearly defined, structured, managed and supervised in the end?
There is only one short answer that I can give to that. The rubbish in, the rubbish out. If you collect the rubbish and if you don't know what is in your possession and what you are using it for, you definitely will create the rubbish that you will have to deal with.
But for the patients, could there be some wrong?
Well, the easiest and the best outcome would be that there will be no progress. But unfortunately, of course, it can lead to the wrong decisions both from the economical point of view and from the purely medical point of view.
Can you provide an example of this kind of situation where a lack of structured data policy has led to really serious consequences? In the European Union, maybe some country has that experience.
The best known examples are those that are dealing with the data breaches, with the leaks of information. So the situation where we didn't take care about the cybersecurity of the information for good enough, and we simply lost the control over the information. But the most obnoxious situations are those where the information which was collected for the good purpose have been used by administration in the wrong way. That's the situation that we had in the Netherlands a few years ago, where the data which was collected for the medical but also for the social reasons have been used against the patient, against the persons whose data was processed, because of the lack of the information on what actually was stored and what were the purposes of using them.
Is there difference if it's a small country in terms of the size and the population, number of population, or a big country in implementing and creating new data governance policy? For example, Latvia is a small country.
There are pros and cons. And pros are definitely that it's easier to get to know everything. So it's easier to find out what are the ways of dealing with the subjects, or what are the entities that you have involved in. You usually have less institutions that are dealing with the problems. On the other hand, each mistake that you do is the mistake for the whole system. While in the countries which are bigger, which have probably a little bit more complicated system, usually you have the different solutions that you have to test at the same time. So it gives us the possibility to make the things better consulted, I may say, so better informed choices taken by those who are creating the systems, but at the same time, each of the mistakes that is done in the smaller systems is better visible than the one in the big ones.
Does European Union look on other parts of the world, let's say North America or Asia or any other parts, and take their experience while thinking about our data governance policies in the healthcare sector?
If you think about the general governance problems, I think that Europe has enough problems itself to copy the problems that exist in the other jurisdictions. So we have 27 systems to join and 27 systems to make interoperable. But if we think about the individual solutions, or let's say the sectoral solutions for the problems, the examples, especially the Asian ones, are often taken into consideration. I can give the example of the COVID and the so-called proximity applications that were introduced in many countries in Europe. Many of them from the technical point of view, but also organizational point of view and governance point of view, were based on the experience of Singapore, which actually tried to do it correctly and transparently enough to be useful also for the Europeans. So not that much in the governance from the administrative point of view. Here Europe is probably even better and more successful. But if we think about the technical solutions and the organization of the systems themselves, yes, both Asian solutions and some of the American ones can be the source of example for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Wiewiórowski. We look forward to your insights on these critical topics in the healthcare data governance. And I will remind our viewers you are watching Podcast Innovations in Health. Please follow us on our YouTube channel, also on our Spotify account, and look for other series. Bye.